She thought it was just a fake date for money, but the mysterious stranger turned out to be her future husband. "Cassie, we need next month's rent in 2 days, or we're out." Jade's urgent whisper echoed in the cramped hallway of their apartment building. Her fingers trembled as she clutched a wrinkled eviction notice, its bold print glaring like a death sentence. Cassie Martin pressed her forehead against the chipped wooden door of their unit, her heart pounding. She'd known this was coming. Their finances had unraveled over the last few months. Jade had lost her job at the boutique, and Cassie's freelance graphic design gigs had dried up. Now they were behind on rent again. "I know," Cassie murmured, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I'll figure something out, I promise." She willed herself to sound convincing, even as her chest felt hollow. Jade's unemployment checks barely covered groceries, and Cassie's overdue client payments were nowhere in sight. The clock was ticking. Inside their tiny apartment, Cassie flopped onto a battered love seat, picking up her phone to scroll through job listings for the 100th time that day. She'd applied to everything: design gigs, dog walking, even retail. Nothing had panned out. "What if I asked Dad again?" Jade offered softly, rummaging through the fridge for something to eat. "He might float us alone." Cassie shook her head. "We've borrowed from your dad too many times. It's not fair, Jade. We're grown women. We have to figure this out ourselves." A tense silence followed. Jade shut the fridge, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I guess we keep hustling." Suddenly, Jade's phone buzzed. She picked it up and frowned. "Huh? That's weird. My friend Erica just texted me something about a fake date service. Says she heard some women are making big money just for going out with clients. Dinner companions for events or something." Cassie sat up straighter. "A fake date service?" She tried to hide her skepticism. "Isn't that basically escorting?" Jade shrugged. "It depends on the platform. Some are more classy companionship than shady dealings. Anyway, Erica claims she knows a girl who made a few hundred in one night just by attending a gala as a +1. Cassie's mind whirled. The idea sounded outrageous and borderline humiliating, but the rent deadline loomed and desperation gnawed at her. She glanced at her laptop open to an empty list of design job leads. "I don't know," she said slowly. "It feels questionable, but I guess it can't hurt to see what it's about, right?" That night, Cassie hunched over her laptop at their tiny kitchen table, Jade at her side. The flickering overhead bulb cast shadows on their anxious faces. Cassie typed "fake date for money" into the search bar, bracing for a slew of suspicious results. They found multiple websites offering event dates and social companions or +1 services. Most boasted a veneer of legitimacy, strict boundaries, no explicit services, just dinner or event companionship for a negotiated rate. "We'll do careful research," Jade murmured, scanning one site's terms. "It looks like some clients are business people needing a partner for formal events. They pay by the hour or by the event." "Still feels weird," Cassie admitted, but her heart kicked up a notch when she saw the rates. $200 or $300 an hour in some cases. "This one's interesting," Jade said, pointing to a listing on a curated site called Graceful +1. "It claims background checks on both parties and emphasizes respectful interactions. Maybe it's safer." Cassie nodded, reading the fine print. The platform boasted strict guidelines: no physical involvement beyond casual touching if both parties consented, no illicit behavior, and an inbuilt chat system that masked personal phone numbers until an agreement was signed. She bit her lip. If it's as legit as it seems, maybe it's worth a try. Even one well-paid date could buy us more time. Jade squeezed her hand. "I'll support you, whatever you decide. But be careful." Inhaling shakily, Cassie clicked sign up. She spent half an hour filling out a profile, uploading a tasteful headshot and specifying boundaries. She was willing to attend dinners, formal events, or casual outings. No overnight stays or questionable activities. She set a rate that felt both bold and a bit terrifying. $400 for a standard event. What if no one hires me? Cassie muttered, half hoping that would be the case. Jade huffed a laugh. Then we'll figure something else out. But if someone does, you'll be one step closer to saving our butts. When Cassie finally gets her first booking, she's paired with a mysterious stranger who seems too good to be true. But as the night unfolds, she realizes he's not just another client. He's someone who could change her life forever. 2 days later, Cassie woke to a notification from Graceful Plus One. Her heart jumped as she opened the platform's chat to find a message from a user named N. Moore. Hello, Cassandra. I'm seeking a companion for a formal reception this Saturday. If you're available, please let me know. Your profile suggests you enjoy charity galas, which is precisely what this event is. Payment is negotiable. Happy to meet your stated rate. I look forward to your response. Cassie's eyes widened. She scrolled through the man's partial profile. It was sparse, just an initial N. Moore, stating he was a business consultant who needed a partner for a philanthropic function. No photos except a blurred silhouette. Seems secretive, Jade commented over her shoulder. But he's offering to match your rate. That's big money, Cassie. Cassie typed a cautious reply. Hello, N. Moore. I'm available on Saturday. Could you provide more details on the event? Dress code, venue, etc. Also, please confirm the agreed rate. Thank you. Within minutes, his response arrived. Dress code is black tie. The reception is at the Redwood Hotel Ballroom. Starting at 7 p.m., I'll arrange for a car to pick you up. Payment of $400 upon arrival, plus a bonus if everything goes smoothly. Let's say $600 total. Cassie's jaw dropped. $600 for one evening? That covers our rent shortfall. Jade smiled, though her eyes were tinged with concern. Just be safe, okay? Make sure you have your phone. Share your location with me. A swirl of nerves and relief flooded Cassie. She typed her acceptance, her heart pounding. She would attend a fancy reception as a stranger's date. It sounded ridiculous, but she had to do something. Saturday arrived faster than Cassie expected. She borrowed a floor-length black gown from Jade's cousin, a garment that hugged her curves tastefully. Jade helped her do her hair in a sleek updo, leaving a few strands to frame her face. Cassie checked her reflection in the mirror, hardly recognizing the elegant woman in place of her usual t-shirt and jeans self. A sleek black sedan arrived at 6:30 p.m. sharp. The driver, a polite older gentleman, opened the door for her. Cassie swallowed her anxiety as she slid onto the plush leather seats. Jade waved goodbye from the sidewalk, phone in hand, ready to track Cassie's location if needed. The Redwood Hotel glowed with bright lights. Guests in tuxedos and gowns swept through the entrance. Cassie's pulse hammered as she stepped out, grateful she had memorized a few phrases about philanthropic events. She was supposed to appear confident and at ease, a perfect +1. Inside the ornate lobby, a staff member directed her to a side corridor where a small sign read, "More reservation." She spotted a tall figure waiting near a marble pillar. He wore a fitted black tux, his dark hair neatly styled, posture effortlessly poised. When he turned around, Cassie felt her breath catch. The man was strikingly handsome, strong jaw, penetrating gaze, and an air of quiet confidence. He offered a polite smile that reached his amber brown eyes. "You must be Cassandra," he said, his voice low but clear amid the lobby's chatter. She forced herself to move forward. "Yes, but please call me Cassie." He nodded. "Cassie, I'm Nicholas Moore. Nick, if you'd like. Thank you for agreeing to this arrangement." It's no problem, she managed, taking in the subtle lines on his face that suggested stress or fatigue. He seemed older than her by a few years, maybe early 30s. Let's talk terms, he murmured, extending a white envelope. Here's your base fee. Once we make our exit, I'll add the bonus. Cassie's cheeks warmed. The transaction felt bizarrely cold. She tucked the envelope into her clutch, nodding. Understood. So any particular role you want me to play tonight? He hesitated, scanning the crowd. Just stay close. Be pleasant. If anyone asks, you're my friend from college, helping me out for the gala. She arched a brow. We didn't go to college together, though. He gave a brief grin. Of course not. It's just a cover story. No one needs to know I hired a date. Cassie's heart fluttered with an odd mix of nerves and curiosity. Why the secrecy? Was he so worried about appearances? She nodded, and they headed into the ballroom. The Redwoods ballroom was a dazzling sight. Crystal chandeliers, polished floors, waiters circulating with silver trays of champagne. Cassie noticed a banner that read, Lionheart Foundation Charity Auction. Fighting hunger, one meal at a time. Nick guided her gently by the arm, his touch light but protective. Let's get a drink, he said, his tone casual but warm. As they approached the bar, Cassie couldn't help but notice the way people glanced at Nick, some with respect, others with a curiosity. Who was this man, really? As Cassie navigates the gala, she begins to suspect that Nick is more than just a business consultant. But when a mysterious guest recognizes him, she realizes this night might be more dangerous and life-changing than she ever imagined. The following week, Cassie couldn't shake the memory of the gala. She'd earned her $600, paid their rent, and avoided eviction. Barely. Jade was relieved, but Cassie felt conflicted. Should she do more fake date gigs? That single event had bought them time, yet something about Nicholas Moore lingered in her thoughts. On a chilly Wednesday morning, as Cassie hunched over her laptop applying for more freelance design gigs, a new message appeared on Graceful +1. Cassie, thank you again for last Saturday. You were wonderful. I have a more extended proposition. Please let me know if we can meet for coffee to discuss. Her pulse kicked. Why was Nick contacting her again? She typed a quick reply. I'm free this afternoon. There's a cafe on Elm and 7th, the Roasted Bean. Shall we meet at 2 p.m.? He confirmed within minutes. Cassie's curiosity soared. That afternoon, she arrived at the Roasted Bean, a cozy spot with exposed brick walls and worn leather armchairs. Nick was already seated by the window, a black coffee in front of him. He looked less formal in a navy sweater and dark jeans, but still carried that air of quiet sophistication. He stood as she approached, offering a small smile. Cassie, good to see you. She took a seat opposite him, warming her hands on a latte. So you mentioned a proposition? Nick nodded, his gaze intent. Yes. The gala was a success. Everyone believed our little story. I have another event next month, actually, a series of events leading up to my family's annual holiday fundraiser. I'd like you to be my ongoing +1. Cassie's eyebrows shot up. You want me to keep pretending to be your date for multiple events? He leaned forward. Exactly. My father's been pushing me to settle down, or at least show that I'm in a stable relationship, before I take on bigger roles in the family business. I'd rather not let him control my personal life, but for the sake of peace, I need a consistent partner for these obligations. She studied him, her heart hammering. Why not just date someone for real? A faint flush touched his cheeks. My life is complicated. I don't have time or the desire to cultivate a genuine relationship under these circumstances. That's why the arrangement with you was perfect. No strings, no drama. You're easy to be around. Cassie felt a tug of conflicting emotions. She'd never imagined a second round of fake dating, yet their synergy at the gala had been oddly natural. And the money, could she afford to turn it down? She cleared her throat. All right. If I agree, what's the compensation? Nick exhaled, relief briefly surfacing. We can negotiate. I propose a monthly retainer, $3,000, plus any additional performance bonuses. In return, you attend certain functions as my girlfriend. Apologies if that sounds crass. $3,000 a month. Cassie's mind reeled. That was double what she usually made in a good month of freelance design, enough to dig her and Jade out of debt. Yet moral questions nagged her. And we're strictly pretending, right? No real intimacy? He nodded firmly. Of course. I'm not paying for anything beyond a public facade. If we hold hands or share mild affection in public, it's purely for appearances. Nothing more. Cassie sipped her latte, her mind racing. The money was tempting, but the idea of pretending to be someone's girlfriend felt strange. Still, Nick seemed genuine, and their chemistry at the gala had been undeniable. I'll need to think about it, she said finally. This is a big commitment. Nick nodded, his expression understanding. Take your time. But if you agree, we'll need to start preparing. My family's holiday fundraiser is in 6 weeks, and there are several smaller events leading up to it. Cassie's stomach churned with a mix of excitement and anxiety. I'll let you know by the end of the week. As Cassie considers Nick's proposal, she begins to uncover more about his mysterious family and the pressures he's under. But when a chance encounter reveals a shocking secret, she realizes this arrangement might be more dangerous and life-changing than she ever imagined. The day arrived for Cassie to meet Nick's father in person. She'd gleaned bits about him, a formidable businessman with a reputation for arrogance. Nick insisted on prepping her for the encounter. Just stay calm, he said as they pulled up to a private country club. He'll likely test you, see if you crack under pressure. Answer politely, but let me handle any tough questions. Cassie's nerves soared. She wore a modest navy sheath dress, her heels clicking on the polished marble floor of the country club's lobby. They found Nick's father, Edward Moore, in a lounge area, a tall, gray-haired man with piercing eyes and an air of supreme confidence. Nicholas, Edward greeted coolly, standing to shake his son's hand. His gaze flicked to Cassie, lingering. So this is the young lady you've spoken of? Nick put a hand on Cassie's back. Father, meet Cassie Martin. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Moore, Cassie said, extending her hand. Edward's grip was firm, his expression inscrutable. Cassie? Lovely name. And what do you do? Cassie explained she was a freelance graphic designer, carefully omitting the truth of how they met. Edward's brow furrowed slightly. Interesting. Not exactly the typical background for a Moore partner, but we'll see. The comment stung, but she forced a polite smile. They sat at a small table overlooking the golf course, staff bringing iced tea and sandwiches. Edward launched into pointed questions about her upbringing, her family, her ambitions. Cassie navigated carefully, giving honest but diplomatic answers. Nick remained tense at her side, occasionally interjecting to deflect Edward's more intrusive queries. After about half an hour, Edward leaned back, steepling his fingers. You're certainly, different from the women Nicholas usually associates with. But I suppose that's not necessarily a bad thing. Cassie's cheeks warmed, but she held her ground. Thank you, Mr. Moore. I believe diversity in perspective is always valuable. Edward's lips twitched almost imperceptibly. Well said. Nicholas, you've chosen someone with a spine. I'll give you that. Nick's jaw tightened, but he forced a smile. Cassie's more than just a spine, Father. She's intelligent, kind, and grounded. Qualities I value. Edward studied them both, his gaze sharp. We'll see how this plays out. The holiday fundraiser is next week. I expect you both to be there, and to make a good impression. We will, Nick said firmly. As they left the country club, Cassie exhaled shakily. That was intense. Nick ran a hand through his hair, his shoulders sagging with relief. You handled it perfectly. Better than I expected, honestly. She glanced at him, her heart still racing. Your father's not exactly warm and fuzzy, is he? Nick let out a humorless laugh. No, he's not. But you stood your ground, and that's what matters. He respects strength, even if he doesn't show it. Cassie nodded, though her mind was still reeling. So what's next? The holiday fundraiser? Nick's expression softened. Yes. It's the biggest event of the year for the Moore family. Everyone will be there. Business partners, investors, even the press. And we'll need to be at our best. Cassie's stomach churned at the thought, but she forced a smile. I'll be ready. Over the next few days, Cassie and Nick spent hours preparing for the fundraiser. They rehearsed their backstory, practiced their interactions, and even shopped for a new dress for Cassie. As they worked together, Cassie couldn't help but notice how natural their dynamic felt. Nick was attentive, thoughtful, and surprisingly vulnerable when they were alone. She found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't expected, sharing her dreams, fears, and even her insecurities. One evening, as they sat in Nick's penthouse reviewing the guest list, Cassie turned to him. Why did you really choose me for this? I mean, there must be other women who could have done this. Nick hesitated, his gaze distant. Because you're real, Cassie. You're not trying to impress me or use me for my name. You're just you, and that's rare in my world. Her heart swelled at his words, but she quickly pushed the feeling aside. Well, let's hope I don't screw it up at the fundraiser. Nick smiled, his eyes warm. You won't. I trust you. As Cassie and Nick prepare for the holiday fundraiser, their fake relationship begins to feel all too real. But when a shocking revelation threatens to unravel everything, Cassie must decide whether to walk away or fight for the man she's starting to care for. Nick's voice was barely a whisper, his face pale and strained. This isn't just a headache, Cassie. I have migraines, sometimes triggered by stress. Usually I can manage, but tonight, it hit harder. Cassie knelt beside him, her silver gown pooling around her, as she gently massaged his temples. You should see a doctor. You can't keep pushing yourself like this. His hand found hers, gripping it tightly. I'm sorry. I worried you. He let out a shaky breath. You've been so good to me. I don't deserve it. Emotion tightened her chest. Don't say that. Everyone deserves kindness. Nick opened his eyes, raw vulnerability shining there. This arrangement started as business, but you've become someone I rely on. Maybe I'm crossing the line, but I can't deny how much I appreciate you. Cassie's heart thudded. She brushed back a strand of hair from his forehead. Nick, I care about you too. More than I should. The room fell silent, the weight of their unspoken feelings hanging in the air. Nick's gaze softened, his hand still clutching hers. Cassie, I never expected this. I thought I could keep things professional, but you've changed everything. She swallowed hard, her mind racing. What are you saying? He hesitated and then spoke softly. I'm saying that I don't want this to be just an arrangement anymore. I want it to be real. Cassie's breath caught. Nick, this is complicated. Your father, the family expectations, and the lies we've told. I know, he interrupted, his voice firm. But I'm willing to fight for this, for us, if you are. Her heart swelled with a mix of hope and fear. I don't know if I can handle the fallout. Your father, the press, the scrutiny. Nick squeezed her hand. We'll handle it together. I'm tired of living my life for other people. I want to live it for me, for us. As the night stretched on, Cassie and Nick talked, really talked. They shared their fears, their dreams, and the truths they'd been hiding. For the first time, the walls between them came down, and what started as a fake relationship began to feel undeniably real. By dawn, they'd made a decision. They would face the challenges ahead, together. As Cassie and Nick take their relationship to the next level, they must confront the fallout from Edward Moore and the public scrutiny. But when a shocking revelation threatens to tear them apart, Cassie must decide whether to fight for love or walk away. Edward Moore's voice was cold and unyielding as he paced to the window, his gaze fixed on the cityscape. "Miss Martin, I won't mince words. I'm aware of the service you used to meet Nicholas. I know you're paid to be his date." Cassie's heart plummeted. She forced herself not to panic, her mind racing. Edward flipped open the folder on his desk. Inside were printed screenshots from Graceful Plus One, her profile, Nick's requests, even their payment logs. "You see, Miss Martin, I employ investigators. It was easy enough to dig up this transaction." Cassie swallowed hard, her hands trembling in her lap. "What do you want?" Edward turned, his gaze piercing. "I want you to end it, of course. You're not suitable for Nicholas. He needs a real relationship with a woman from our social standing." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low, menacing tone. "I'll pay you handsomely to leave. 10 times whatever he's paid you." Revulsion and anger flared in Cassie's chest. "Your son is an adult, capable of choosing his own partner." Edward's voice hardened. "He can choose, yes. But he's always been sentimental. He'll cling to this charade out of pride. If you truly care for him, you'll step aside. Spare him the embarrassment when the scandal goes public." Cassie's stomach twisted. A scandal could tarnish Nick's reputation and threaten his role in the family business. She weighed her love for him against the damage Edward could inflict. "He deserves better than blackmail," she said softly, her voice trembling but firm. Edward's lip curled. "You're hardly in a position to judge. You took money to be his girlfriend. Don't pretend it's pure devotion. My attorneys could bury you in legal nightmares for misrepresentation, extortion, who knows what. You'd lose everything." Tears burned Cassie's eyes. She realized he could twist the truth to destroy her and Nick. Cassie stood, her legs shaky but her resolve firm. "I won't let you manipulate me or Nick. If you want me to leave, you'll have to tell him yourself." Edward's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, the office door swung open. Nick stood in the doorway, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. "Father," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "What the hell is going on?" Edward straightened, his composure faltering for a moment. "Nicholas, this doesn't concern you." "It concerned me if you're threatening Cassie," Nick snapped, stepping into the room. He moved to Cassie's side, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. Cassie's heart swelled with gratitude, but the tension in the room was palpable. "I know everything," Nick continued, his gaze locked on his father. "About the arrangement, the payments, all of it. And I don't care. Cassie isn't just some hired date. She's the woman I love." Edward's face turned red with fury. "You're throwing away everything for her? Your future, the family business?" "I'm throwing away your control," Nick interrupted, his voice steady. "I'm done living my life by your rules. If you can't accept that, then you'll lose me too." The room fell silent, the weight of Nick's words hanging in the air. Edward stared at his son, his expression unreadable. Finally, he turned away, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "Fine," he said quietly. "Do what you want, but don't come crying to me when it all falls apart." Nick's grip on Cassie's shoulder tightened. "It won't, because we'll face it together." As they left the office, Cassie felt a mix of relief and fear. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, She felt truly free. As Cassie and Nick take their relationship public, they must navigate the fallout from Edward Moore and the scrutiny of the press. But when a shocking revelation threatens to tear them apart, Cassie must decide whether to fight for love or walk away. The storm outside mirrored the tempest of emotions inside Cassie's apartment. Nick stood before her, drenched and determined, his eyes blazing with a mix of anger and love. "Cassie, please talk to me," he pleaded, stepping inside and ignoring Jade's concerned stare. "Why are you doing this? Did my father threaten you?" She trembled, wanting to deny it, but seeing the anguish in his eyes, her resolve crumbled. She led him to the couch, tears streaming as she confessed everything: Edward's threats, the hush money, her fear that a scandal could destroy him. Nick listened, his jaw tight. "I suspected he'd do something like this. God, Cassie, I am so sorry you faced this alone. I couldn't bear hurting you." She sniffled, burying her face in his shoulder. "I love you too much to ruin your life." Nick's breath hitched. "You love me?" She nodded, her eyes glistening. "Yes, but I'm scared." He wrapped her in his arms, his voice raw with emotion. "I love you too. We'll face him together. I won't let him drive us apart." Jade, tears in her own eyes, slipped out to give them privacy. For a long moment, they just held each other, the storm outside echoing the tempest of their emotions. The next day, Nick summoned Cassie to Moore Industries. There, they confronted Edward in his office. Nick's eyes burned with conviction as he placed the hush money envelope on the desk. "Father, you will not blackmail Cassie. I'm stepping up as a partner in the family business on my terms. If you want a scandal, fine. But know this. If you sabotage my life, I'll walk away from Moore Industries entirely. I won't be your puppet." Edward's face darkened. "Nicholas, don't be reckless." "No," Nick cut in, his voice firm. "I love Cassie. We started as a paid arrangement, yes, but I'd do it all again if it brought us together. She's not leaving. Accept it, or lose me." A tense silence followed. Edward's stare flicked between them, seeing Nick's unwavering stance and Cassie's steadfast support. Finally, he exhaled, his shoulders sagging. "You've backed me into a corner, son? Very well. If you insist on this relationship, I won't interfere." He shot Cassie a warning look. "But any drama, and I'll revisit my options." Cassie held Nick's hand tighter, relief flooding her chest. "Understood." Over the following months, Cassie and Nick navigated the aftermath. There were whispers in society circles, mild gossip, but no catastrophic scandal. Edward maintained a frosty politeness, grudgingly watching as Nick became a respected figure in the company. His migraines became less frequent with reduced stress. Cassie's freelance design career blossomed, aided by Nick's business connections. She insisted on forging her own path, never wanting to rely solely on his wealth. 1 year after their first fake date, Nick invited Cassie back to the Redwood Hotel. He led her to the same ballroom where they had initially pretended to be a couple. The lights were low, a single table set in the center with candles. He took her hand, his eyes filled with love. "We started here in a strange game of make-believe, but our love is real." Cassie's eyes misted as he lowered to one knee, a small velvet box in hand. "Cassandra Martin, will you marry me? For real, no more pretending." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered, laughter bubbling up. 1,000 times, yes." They embraced under the soft glow, their hearts full of a truth no arrangement could imitate. The mysterious stranger who had once been just a paycheck had become the love of her life, and she his. In that moment they both realized that sometimes the wildest journeys begin with a single, unexpected step into the unknown. Thank you for watching. She thought it was just a fake date for money, but the mysterious stranger turned out to be her future husband. We hope this story warmed your heart and reminded you that love can blossom in the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed this tale, we invite you to subscribe to Timelenz Stories. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with more captivating narratives, filled with drama, hope, and beautiful twists of fate. Join Timelenz Stories today and never miss another moving journey, because every story has the power to change us, just like Cassie and Nick's journey changed theirs.